it is very easy to say, I am going to give the best speech of my life. Remember, there are three kinds of speeches. One that you wish to give, one that you actually give, and one that you wish you gave. Now let's talk about selecting a topic. How many of you have difficulty in selecting a topic? Come on, it's okay. Yeah? Alright. After today, I assure you, you will never have a problem selecting a topic. Let's talk about, may I use the board here?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's talk about how to select a topic. Now, how many of you heard table topics and said, oh, I could have done this, yeah, this is so easy. Did anybody feel it? Right? Especially when somebody else is on stage. Remember, the human brain is a wonderful thing. It starts the minute, rather it starts even before you're born and stops the minute you step on stage to speak. Human brain, absolutely wonderful thing. So, when you come up to speak, you're given a topic and you're like, blank. Ever happened to you? And when you go and sit down on that chair, you're like, oh, I could have said this. Right? Now, have you ever heard somebody give a speech and realized, I had a similar experience? This person is talking about this, I've had a similar experience. Have you ever had that feeling?
Yes.
Right. Now, how many of you have written those topics down? You've come up on stage to deliver a topic. Okay, let's talk about what is more important, to be loved or to love or to be loved. I'm taking these topics because these are what your Table Topics Master just covered, and I thought they were fabulous topics. Each one of them very well done. So let's have a round of applause for us. You have seen the movie Sagar.
Which one?
Sagar. बस यही प्यार है जिसके बदले में कोई तो प्यार दे बाकी बेकार है यार मेरे. Simple message, to be loved and to love. Everything else is a waste. How easy was it to correlate? Failures are the stepping stones to successes. Well, how many of you have seen the movie Three Idiots? Give me some sunshine. Come on. Give me some rain. Give me some rain. Give me another chance. I want to grow up once again. How easy was it to correlate? How many of you wrote these topics down? How many of you thought you could make speeches on this and better than the ones people giving speeches on stage? Remember, this is where your topics come from. Table topics. If you see someone giving a speech and you think you can do better, write it down. If you come up and give a speech and go back and sit down and get a few more ideas, write that topic down. So your first source of topics is not only table topics but other people's speeches. Have you ever judged someone too soon? Have you ever been judged? Have you faced a situation where people who judged you even before they met you? Or when they met you? Do you have a story? Okay, let's talk about, so we'll come back to tackling table topics later. The other place where your topics can come from is of course Google Mata. Or Google Pita. Whatever you want to call it. Let's not be gender biased here. Then you have newspapers, magazines, movies. Ever been in a situation where you felt, yeah, this will happen to me? Somebody was talking about how he loved someone and somebody else loved him. Ever had that situation? Look at your hand. Come on, everybody, look at your hand. Nicely. How many topics do you see?
20.
Sorry?
20.
20. Stand up, please.
Digits.
Sorry?
Digits.
Digits, okay. 2.
All fingers are not equal.
All fingers are not equal. Alright, 3.
Thumbs up.
Destiny, thumbs up. Okay, come on. Now. Okay.
Unity.
Alright. They are all equal. Fantastic.
Unity.
Cross, unity. Please sit down. Yes, women, nail polish. We can talk hours about it. One shade of nail polish. We can talk hours over it. Manish Malhotra, for God's sake. Alright, rings. Metals used to make rings. Love. Love. Stones used in those metals to appease the different planets. I mean, I know there is this yellow sapphire for Jupiter G and a blue sapphire for Saturn and, well, whatever. There are plenty of those. And then there are, okay, how many of you have tried palmistry in college? Or pretended to know palmistry in college? Nobody's done that to you? You haven't done it to anyone? Gentlemen? Yes, I thought as much. So, how many of you think you can make speeches over it? Remember, it's a piece of cake. When you come to Toastmasters, the first thing I say is enjoy yourselves. It's not about how will my meeting go. The question should be, how much fun can I derive from this meeting? So, Google Mata, somebody else's topics, table topics, and look around you. The point is, we have so many topics. I mean, from your hand, you got, I would get Wayne's dogs, a whole lot of other things, deficiencies. Calcium deficiency reflects on males. Iron deficiency reflects on males. Sorry?
Slap.
Slap? Okay, yes, that. Okay, I'm not even going to comment on the slaps. But the point is, we have a plethora of topics which we just don't see. So what is it that connects one person to another? How do you select a topic? What usually happens is we start talking about the hand, then we go to the rings, then we go to the stones, then we go to the planet, and our entire chain of thought gets diverted, and then we think we don't have a speech. The point is to keep your center, which is the center of the topic, which is the title of the topic, as your center. How many of you have heard of the solar system theory? Mind mapping? Anyone? Okay. So what does the solar system look like? I assume you all went to school. I was a little scared. So we have a sun in the center, and we have these little planets around it.
It's mind map.
That's right, it's mind mapping. So I need somebody to represent the sun. Come on, quickly. One person to represent the sun. Come. Okay, we have our sun, which is our main topic for the moment. Thank you. Which is our main topic. Now I need a few planets. Come on. Okay, wait. Just wait. So now we're going to do a speech on the onion. Onion. Pyaz onion?
Okay.
I presume everybody knows what an onion is? Okay, great. So one thing that comes into your mind when you think of the word onion. Yes? Tears, come on. We have our first planet ready. Layers, come on. Okay. Come on, anyone?
Strong taste.
Strong taste, come up. Good. Alright, anyone? Come on.
Paneer lavata.
Paneer lavata. Why would paneer go pyaza? I mean, after all, it has to be related to the onion. Okay, anybody else? Salad, come up. Anybody else? Come on.
Expensive rates.
Expensive.
I cannot come. I have to keep a track on that.
the BJP government, for heaven's sake. It's okay. And the whole idea of telling you about the onion is how you can convert an everyday thing into a speech. If you can convert the onion into a speech, you can do anything. So, you have the body. Now, if I were to make it a little more interesting, I would say red. Somebody else said, let brinjal be king. He has a crown on his head. Then somebody said, let cauliflower be king. Because while it is a vegetable, it is also a flower. And so on and so forth they went on. But nobody mentioned the poor little onion. And the poor onion sat in a corner and cried. And cried and cried and cried. And Lord Shiva appeared before the onion. And he said, little onion, why do you cry? So the onion said, nobody wants me to be king. Little onion, from now, whoever cuts you will cry. You are the king of vegetables. And that's how, or that's why you cry when you cut onions. You just create that drama, create that hype, create a story around one little onion. How do you end a speech? Now when you're ending a speech, one would expect something that would stay with people. What is it that you can leave them with? Personally, I would say there are some things we complain about, but they form an essential part of our lives. Like we complain about the smell of onions, yet it forms an important part of every dish. Or, alternatively, you could think of something like a man's character is like an onion. The deeper you go, the sweeter it gets. It's evident in its layers. It's not simple. So think about how you want to relate it, what you want to do. Now, how difficult was making a speech on the onion? Did anybody find it difficult? Can you make your speeches? Let's talk about the fan. Moral of the story from the fan. Now let's not talk about the body of the speech because fans come in all kinds of colors and varieties, and these days the offices don't even have fans, they have air conditioners. But there were days when we had hand fans. So let's not go into the details of the speech. Let's talk about the ending. If we were to relate fan to life, how would we do it?
It cools you down.
Sorry?
It cools you down.
It cools you down. So you could be like the fan which cools other people down. Okay. What else? Good.
It runs endlessly so that you can sleep peacefully.
It runs endlessly so that you can sleep peacefully. Fantastic.
It runs at different speeds.
It runs at different speeds.
You can run it the way you want. If you want to set it fast, it will go fast. If you want it to be slow, it will.
That's
run
fantastic.
slowly also.
The essence of Toastmasters. How soon or how slow you want to grow in Toastmasters is entirely up to you. You set your own speeds.
And it is the last thing that you see in night and the first thing you see in the morning.
I don't know what your wife will say about that. I really don't know how your wife will react to that. And remember, it's being recorded. Send us back the recording, please.
3 parts of life.
3 parts of life. Okay, what are those 3 parts?
Could be anything, professional life or personal life.
What's the third one?
Secret life.
Actually, you could even relate it to a human being where, or rather us,
Yeah.
people who are confused. We are stuck to our roots and yet we want to go everywhere. So it really depends on how you look at things. Think creatively. And topics are around you. Look around. How many topics do you see? Come on, quickly look around.
Light, fans, board.
Precisely, you can make a speech on almost anything. Ideas are like rabbits. The minute you have a couple, they multiply very fast. But if you let them go, they also run away very fast. So when you have an idea, write it down. Is it okay to steal from a child to feed a beggar? Wasn't that the topic?
Yes.
Yes.
How many of you have heard of Robin Hood?
Yes, it's directly links to that.
Robin Hood was a person who stole from the wealthy. Sorry, is it okay to steal to feed a child? Yeah, so he was a person who stole from the wealthy to feed the poor. We've all heard his story, but when it comes to table topics, and then we go back and we say, oh yes, Robin Hood. Write it down. somewhere that speech will come in handy. Now, what is it that you share with a person sitting in New York? Anyone? What is it that you share with a person sitting in New York? Remember, you do not need to answer now, but when you think you have the answer, raise your hand. This badge saying, "Thank you, Toastmasters," goes to the person who gives me the answer that I'm looking for. There are no wrong or right answers. Remember, I am looking for a particular answer. If you give me that answer, the badge is yours. Yes, Himanshu.
Both of us have 24 hours in the day.
Both of you have 24 hours in a day. Yes, you do, but unfortunately that's not the answer I'm looking for. Yes, Himanshu?
Air.
Air? Okay, not the answer I'm looking for.
Times Square.
Times Square? You shared it with him?
I would definitely, because there's nothing in Delhi to see that.
Good one, but no.
Sun.
Sun? Okay.
Human emotions.
Absolutely. You've got it right. Remember, you may grow up in different cultures, you may grow up in different conditions, you may grow up with different set of families, set of religions, but what you share is human emotions. We all feel love, hate, like, dislike. Any emotion that you feel is felt, maybe to a certain degree. Not equally, maybe not equally, but to a certain degree by others as well. How many of you have, I assume all of you have been children, those who it's said that do not assume anything, but I assume all of you have been children. How many of you have children? Okay, that's a question I want to know. Okay, and how many of you have younger brothers and sisters? Please keep your hands raised if you have children. Younger brothers and sisters? Okay. How many of you have seen a child learning how to walk? Please keep your hands down. Learning how to walk. So how does a child learn how to walk? Please put your hands down. Thank you. He puts both his hands, spreads them apart, and takes a shaky step and falls down. Then he gets up again, takes another shaky step and falls down again. And these shaky steps continue for a while with those falls till a child can balance himself and walk confidently. Is it better to try and fail, or is it better not to try at all? Remember, if the child does not try and fail, he will never be able to walk. My 6-year-old nephew walks up to me and says, "Masi, this is my girlfriend." And I'm like, at your age, I didn't even know what a girlfriend or boyfriend meant. What that word meant, I mean, leave alone, it was a big word for me. But remember, it's okay. Life does not come with a guideline. You make your own mistakes, you take your own chances. Sometimes we fail. I have one rule I apply. SW, 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 next. Some will, some won't. So what? Who next? You go for a job interview, you don't get selected. So what? Next. You go for a job interview, you get selected. So what? Next day job. It's really very simple. You didn't win that contest. So what? There's always a next contest. You did not get that girl, guy. So what? The next one's around the corner. Who cares? Speakers once said this. You know what's wrong with you? With me, with everybody? Who cares? What we care about is what is right with us. How many of you climbed trees as children? पेड़ पे कभी चढ़े हो? How many of you fell down from those trees? And how many of you made speeches about it? Precisely, we all have stories. Remember the time you fell down? Did you learn something from it? One of the most beautiful examples in a speech I've seen made out of a story from falling down from a tree is where this person had to climb a coconut tree. And he said it was zenith for me. And my brother wanted a coconut and I had to climb the tree. And one fine day I reached the zenith. Simple? Simple story. But what it said was, if you keep trying, you succeed. It doesn't matter if obstacles come your way. I was giving the best speech of my life, or so I thought, at a district conference, and I'm like, this time it's me. And 45 minutes into the speech, my mic fell down. So I had an option. I could either pick up the mic and put it back. I knew I had lost the first place. I could either pick up the mic and put it back, or I could let it be. And guess what? For the next 6 minutes, I had to take. So what? Who cares? I'll second that contest. But it doesn't matter, because what I learned was sometimes things happen, things that are beyond your control. So, you don't give up. You try another time. Now let's talk about, we've seen how we select topics. We've seen how we often forget about topics that we have with us. Remember, at the International Speech Contest, at the World Championship, what will take you forward is not a near-death experience, not a kidney stone, or not a kidney failure, or not a cancer story. What will take you forward is a simple story that left you with a message, and that leaves the audience with a message. One simple story. One of the best stories that moved me this year, and I'm talking about the World Championship where I was playing the role of Sergeant at Arms. In Kuala Lumpur, standing next to the stage, this person walks up and says, I don't have a speech for you today. I'm sorry, I don't have a speech for you today. And remember, at the World Championship, you have to change your speech on the last day. And he said, my mind is blocked, I don't have a speech. I was thinking to myself, if all he does is relates this to life, where sometimes we don't perform to the best, he's got a podium finish straight off. But this guy just went ahead and said, I don't have a speech. I came here because my friends came late last night and they said, no, you must go up to the stage and perform. And I don't have a speech. But you know what that left me with? That man didn't win. He was nowhere in the first 3. And I would be surprised even if he's anywhere in the first 6, let alone first 3. But the point is, what that man left me with was a message. It's okay. It's okay to fail. It's alright to not be the best. Because your calling will come to you. What you need to do is keep trying. Now, World Championship, International Speech Contest, this is something we keep talking about time and again. This club has been in existence since 2007? Right. And one thing that you require is your dues should be paid to Toastmasters International. So, dues are due. Remember, members, please pay your dues. Second thing is, you should have completed 6 speeches. How many of you have completed 6 speeches from the CC mandate? So all of you, I am hoping to see you at the contest. Can I have that assurance?
Yes, of course.
Wonderful, because we've just seen how easy it is to make speeches. Now remember, no life-changing experiences. How many of you know how to ride a bike, a two-wheeler? Ride a bike, a two-wheeler, cycle, bicycle? Okay, great. How many of you have fallen from those bikes? How many of you have made stories out of it? Everybody has a story. When I was small, in those days, avian bicycles were the in thing. And I wanted one. Now, if everybody has an avian bicycle, or rather if my neighbor has an avian bicycle, I wanted one. So I went up to my dad and I said, Dad, can I have an avian bicycle, please? And he said, if you come first in class, I'll get you an avian bicycle. 6 months later, I had a shiny new avian bicycle parked in my garage. And I was thrilled. Have you, alright, do you remember the time when you had wind blowing through your hair and you were pedaling down and sweeping through on a bicycle? That was me. With my maid servant pushing me So she would come to the front, turn it around, and push me back. That went on for about 3 months. The safety wheels stayed. And after 3 months, I wanted something else. So the cycle was parked in the garage. It still has the safety wheels. Off I went to college. And in my 4th year college, I shifted out of the hostel. Now you have to understand, Bangalore in those days, Bangalore was nice. I mean, I had nothing against Bangalore, but the college that I was in had a management that gave us very, very yucky food. And they didn't even let us buy from outside. So there was no choice. I was having medical conditions because of lack of food. All I was doing was surviving on 1 dairy milk and 1 Pepsi a day. Or rather 1 dairy milk and 1 Pepsi every meal. And you can understand what happened. So yes, after a couple of hospitalizations, my parents said, you know what, shift out. Okay, so I shifted close to the college. Now every morning I face this dilemma. How do I get to college? You have to understand, where there is a will, there is a won't. And one thing I won't do is walk. 3 kilometers to college? Not happening. Let's get an auto. So I would go to the auto stand and say, Bhaiya, can you take me to college, please? No, madam, too near. You charge more. Take double. No, madam, too near. No go. Now, when there is a no go, you're in a dilemma. What do you do? So after 2 days of missing college, my friend who lived in the neighborhood came to me and she said, why haven't you come? The autos don't go. So she said, okay, get a kinetic. But I don't know how to drive one. I will drive it. We'll go to college. I usually walk, but I'll drive you to college. That sounds like a plan. So I called up Dad and I said, Dad. He said, yes. Can I have a kinetic Honda? And he said, you don't know how to drive one? No, my friend Atarvidi, she said she'll drive me to college and drive me back. So he said, I'll think about it. Remember, he didn't say no. And I had about 40,000 lying in my bank. So I took that 40,000 and bought my kinetic Honda and parked it at home. And I said, Dad, I bought a kinetic Honda. And he said, congratulations. Now you have a vehicle you don't know how to drive. And you don't even have a mate to push you. So, after that, every morning, Atarunisa and I would sit on that kinetic Honda. She would drive me to college, just drive me back. And this went on for 3 days. On the 4th day, Atarunisa got a boyfriend. So she would sit behind him on his bike and go to college, and I was left with a kinetic Honda that I didn't even know how to drive. Now you have to understand, I weighed about 38 kgs, and at the same height, I was 1 stick. And the kinetic Honda weighed about 48 kgs and was huge. So I would sit on the kinetic Honda, start it. Now remember, accelerator and you fall down. There's no sense of balance in my head. Remember the bicycle story, the safety wheels? So I would sit on it and walk. Press the start button and walk to college and walk back. I realized not only was I walking to college, which I hated doing, I was also carrying this load with me. So I asked Atarunisa's boyfriend, Bhaiya, can you please teach me how to ride this thing? He said, okay, press, increase the accelerator. No, I'll fall down. He said, but if you don't do that, how will you learn? I'll fall down. So he said, okay, try. So he sat behind me, he tried helping me. Nothing happened. The minute he would get off, I would sit still and walk. They said, you know what, even if it goes, don't press it too hard. But what if I fall down? I can't even hold the weight of this. No, you press it slowly and you put both your feet on the ground and it will stop. Have you seen my size? I'll fall down first and break a few bones. So he said, okay, let's find someone who can sit behind you and put their feet down at the same time. Now, finding someone who can sit behind me had to be my height. So we found my best friend, Kirti. Now, Kirti was about 5'6" and weighed about 150 kilos. stop, turn, stop, turn, stop. And for 3 days we went to college that way. We were a sight on the road. Gradually the intensity of turn became longer and we graduated to the main road. Now, the minute I would see a bus or car approaching, I would slide out of the kinetic Honda. Dham, the kinetic Honda would follow. Bigger dham, Kirti would follow because she could not slide out. She was sitting at the back, remember? After about 27 accidents, I finally learned how to ride a kinetic Honda. That story taught me 3 important lessons. Nothing is impossible if you put your mind to it. There is nothing called sense of balance or no sense of balance. And your best friends can keep grudges for a very, very long time. She still scolds me for it. And I had even suggested that I would put safety wheels on my kinetic Honda before this happened. And they said, crippled people use that. I said, fine, I'll go buy an auto. And they said, whoever has heard of a doctor coming to college in an auto, driving it. So that's my story. What's yours? Now, if I could have that little picture. This picture. No, not this one. Okay, so this is a story that I was talking about very recently. And this is a story that happened about a month ago. Okay, it's coming. Can we switch on the slide? How do you know what that is?
Every one of them. Kayak.
Yes, it's a kayak. I was kayaking in Lavasa. Now, you have to understand, I had never known kayaking. I did not know what it was. I just knew Lavasa is famous for its adventure sports. So let's go to Lavasa. And I went to the counter and I said, can I go kayaking? And this man said, are you coming in 2s or 1s? And I said, can you send me with some? No, madam, when you come in 2s, then you go in 2s. When you come in 1s, you go in 1s. I said, but I don't know how to drive this thing. No problem, that man will teach you. Okay. So he put me on this thing, and this was this nice little plastic boat kind of thing with that little platform. And he said, when you want to go left, push right. When you want to go right, push left. You see those balloons there? Don't go there. Don't go beyond the balloons. And I said, okay, go on to the next slide, please. The next picture. Now, this was the other side. Since I didn't have to go to the balloons, I went to this side. Now, I want you to focus on this area. It's a nice thorny bush. And that's where my kayak went and got stuck. And I said, help! Because I knew how to take it left and I knew how to take it right, but I didn't know how to take it forward. It was going forward on its own. Or backward for that matter. So it just went and it got stuck there. And I said, help, help, help! And there was this man going from here. I mean, this is not that near, but there was this man going from there. And he looked at me and he said, and my cheesy, do we have it? Can we go on to the next picture, please? No, that's the side of the road. Okay. And my cheesy lifeguard just sat there and did nothing. And I was like, help, help, help. So this man was going from there. I said, can you call someone? And then I kind of pushed water left and pushed water right. And somehow my kayak got unstuck. So I pushed my kayak back. I went around, took a few circles. And finally, I reached the shore. And this story taught me one important lesson. That sometimes we get stuck. Do we try or do we cry? It's okay to get stuck. And at Toastmasters, help is available when you need it. But sometimes in life, we get stuck. Do we try or do we cry? It's very easy to sit and cry and say, मेरे साथ क्या हो गया? Oh Lord, what has happened? Remember, we all face situations. Nobody's life is perfect. The more you get to know a person, the more you get to know his or Very little of it. Can anybody identify that?
It's hilly area. Hilly area.
It's a hilly area, okay.
Himachal.
No. It's one of the places that let me down. I'm a traveler. I'm an avid traveler. And I had heard so much about this place. I'm sure you have as well. When I went there, I said sometimes it's okay to look back and see how far you've come. But sometimes it's okay to look back and say, nah, this is not for me. We have that kind of experience. All of us have had that kind of experience. Who hasn't? This was Khandala. And trust me, Himachal has more beautiful spots. Khandala is just this one little garden where you sit down and see the hills. That's it. And I'm like, what happened to Atiya Khandala? Next time a guy tells me that, I'll be like, no way, go away. I don't even want to talk to you. So, can you just keep the slide off now? Thank you. And switch on the lights, please. We will come back to this when we need it. So yeah, those are my stories. How many of you have stories? How many of you are willing to share your stories? Little experiences make the best stories. Remember, big men use small words, small men use big words. The idea is not to enthrall or to impress. The idea is to express. I was on my 4th round of DTM. Today I'm on my 6th. I was on my 4th round of DTM. And the best advice that I got was from a member who's not even a CC today. We were sitting outside Freemasons Lodge, and that used to be a venue of one of my clubs that I used to go to. I'm a member of 5 clubs at the moment. So I was sitting there and I had gone early as per me being me. So I usually end up 1 hour early wherever I have to go, usually. And if I'm on time, that means I'm late for my clock. And I was sitting at the venue and this lady walked up and she said, what are you doing here? I said, I usually come early. Let's go have a dosa at Sarana Bhavan. Now Sarana Bhavan was right across. I mean, if you've seen Janpad, Sarana Bhavan is right across Freemasons. So she said, you know what, you're doing everything right. What is it that you're missing? And I said, I'm missing the connect with the audience. There is something that's missing from my speeches or from my evaluations or from my modules. I mean, I look at the guide. There is a guiding ballot, which your president will be, or your VP Education will be sending you. Who's the VP Education here? Right. So you will be sending them the guiding ballot before the contest, right? Now, it says 50 marks for content, which means your content should be strong. It says 30 marks for delivery, which means your voice modulation, your expressions, your gestures, your whole body movement, your positioning on stage, everything counts, including your dressing. And then it says 20 marks for language, which includes the structure of the speech, the words you use. Remember, there are only 5 or 7 or 10 marks for pronunciation and grammar. Even if you don't have the best pronunciation and grammar, you can still win it if you have good content and good delivery. And I said, I'm going by the book. I'm doing everything they say, and still I'm not being able to win it. What is it that takes one to get there? And she said, what are you missing? And I said, connect. And she said, why do you give speeches? Why do you give evaluations? For the award? For the best speaker award? For the best evaluator award? That is where you are going. Because we come to Toastmasters to provide others a mutually supportive and positive learning environment. Are you helping others grow? Are you giving a message that will help others? Are you giving an evaluation that will help others? She said, you're doing your voice modulation, you're shouting out, you're going slow. What does it gain? Remember, it's not about how loud you can be. It's not about how best you can modulate your voice. It's about how you can make the member feel. People will forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Remember, the hallmark of a good storyteller is that not only does he step into his own story, he also takes you with him, or as the case may be. So take people to the story, into the story, take them to the scene of action. Now, if I were to tell you about this couple who was sitting and watching Beautiful Woman. They were watching this movie Pretty Woman. They were watching this movie on television, sitting on a leather couch, eating popcorn when the doorbell rang. Today. Now, the movie they were watching was Pretty Woman. How many of you could smell the popcorn? You good? So you are the kinesthetic learners. How many of you saw the sofa? What color was it?
Black.
Red.
Okay. Any other colors? Remember, I never mentioned the aroma of popcorn. I never mentioned the color of the sofa. Yet you saw it. You're visual learners. People who see colors or think in colors are visual learners. People who think in terms of kinesthetics are the kinesthetic learners. And then there are the auditory learners who learn having talked to them. Your speech must appeal to all kinds of people, because you never know who's sitting in the audience and who is the judge. So think about it. It's very easy to say, I can't do this. On the other hand, if you take that first step, you're one step closer to winning. Who knows, the next world champion could maybe come out of here? But that will happen only if you try for your club contest. Now let's talk about elements of the story. So we've talked about selecting a topic, we've talked about making a speech, we've talked about how speeches are there in everybody's life, the stories are there in everybody's life. What is it that goes into a good story? Elements of a good story. Now remember, at the World Championship or at the International Speech Contest, the first thing that they see is it a personal story? Does it inspire me? What is the takeaway that I have? Now, all those things you can count. What is it that takes a story to become a story? I mean, there was one time when I heard, remember those kind of stories from them? At Toastmasters International. So even if your king and queen died, what happened? So a story has a plot. Once upon a time, long ago, there lived a king and a queen. And after a very long time, they had a new princess. They threw a party, and all the fairies in the kingdom came for that party. Except one. Now remember, you have a plot, you've created characters, a king, a queen, a princess, fairies, and then you create a conflict. So everything is going smoothly except one. And this fairy comes and curses the princess that this princess will die at the age of 16. You have that conflict there. Everything is going smoothly, everybody is happy, and then there is a conflict. How many of you see these daily soaps?
Forcefully.
Which one? Name any one, that's alright, it doesn't matter.
Hold on.
I don't know. I
Okay.
see when I'm having dinner, only that time I see.
Right.
इतना करो ना मुझसे प्यार.
Itna karo na mujhe pyar. Okay, anybody else? Come on. We have a Mohammed.
Master Chef.
Okay, Master Chef is not a soap. I'm sorry, I'm looking at soaps at the moment. Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki, Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Ba. Everything starts smoothly. You're very happy with the setting, and then one fine day a whack comes into the picture. That twist is what creates that excitement. Once my mother said, why is it that every story has these characters? I said, would you see a serial if it didn't? Ye hai mohabbat hai. I mean, for that woman, what's her name again? Shagun, yes. Ishita and Raman are having a great time, and then Shagun steps in back into the whole story. Why? Because you have to create that conflict. And at the end of the story, there has to be a conflict have a conflict resolution and conclusion. Where you have the moral of the story. What did you learn? What did I learn from the bike story? There's nothing impossible if you put your mind to it. What did I learn from the kayak story? Again, very similar. So remember, morals may be similar. Your story is what is going to take you forward. What is unique about you? All of us grew up in different places with different set of parents. Come on, if we were similar, we'd be close. But we aren't, thankfully. With different beliefs, with different value systems, with different educational backgrounds. What is it that is unique about you? Because what we want to know is how can we gain from it? Now remember, Vikas Ji, the only Indian to have ever won the World Championship so far. And I say so far because you never know. What was unique about Vikas Ji? He said, I lived in Calcutta, where the smell of spices wafts down the streets and the buildings are so closely bound together and the streets are so narrow that sunlight is a myth. Simple, effective, brings the entire flavor of Calcutta together. Yet another speaker talked about falling flat on his face. Darren McRoy. What did he do? He fell flat on his face and he said, ouch. It's okay, sometimes we fall flat on our faces. So what? We've all fallen sometimes in life. I mean, somebody talked about Edison failing 10,000 times, wasn't it? So what? The point is how beautiful a story can you weave out of your failures. Remember, successful people, it's always a series of steps. You go up, you fail, you go up, you fail again, and then you succeed, and then you fail, and then you succeed, and then you succeed. But ultimately when you see, it's a nice curve. Failure gives you a story. Remember, it's a very lonely life up there, only one person wins the World Championship. The other 30,000 members that compete each year, 29,999 members do not make it. So, what? Mark Hunter won after how many tries? 17. Was it Mark Hunter or was it somebody else? Well, there you have it. Champions have their stories where they've lost and won again, and lost and won again. Dhananjay Hitrachi, the winner this year, the winner of the World Championship from Sri Lanka. I met him in 2007. He was second that year. 2007 when he started trying for the World Championship. No, he started trying much before that, 2004 if I'm not mistaken.
10 years.
There you go. 2007 was the first time I met him on the stage at the district conference. I was third, he was second, and there was a girl called Maheshi who was first. And then I went on to try again and again in the semi-finals. And finally he made it to the finals. And you know what he wrote on the day, on the eve of his World Championship? He said, finally I've made it to the finals. He didn't say anything else. He didn't talk about winning. Because he said, the day I gave up on winning is the day I actually won. What is it that you're looking at? What is your story? Now, how many of you have an idea in mind for a speech? And I'm saying this because if you want, we can work on a speech right now. But before we do that, let's talk a little about your favorite topics. So, in terms of speech, we've covered topic selection, we've covered framing a speech, we've covered how you can make your speeches interesting by adding a little bit of you. And I would say, add as much of you as possible because the audience is not here to see a canvas speech, they're here to see you. Plagiarism never pays. Plagiarism is really lifting up somebody else's idea and passing it out as your own. Dwarka Toastmasters was the host of a division contest way back in 2009-10. And one person stepped up, who was in 8-9, story was powerful. The message the speaker conveyed was even more powerful. But that story was taken from the net. The speaker was called, there was a protest lodged, the speaker was called, and the speaker was asked, so, is this your story? And the speaker said yes. There was a citation on the net. Period. The speaker lost credibility, lost the contest. Remember, keep the stories original in your own. Another division contest you may hear it at the club level. Somebody may not have heard the story. You may hear it at the division, at the area level, division level, district level, semi-finals. Some people will have heard the story, unless it is your story. So, a few years ago, this man walked up another division contest, and the reason I'm telling you this is not to belittle anyone. The reason I'm telling you this is to let you know that these things happen. It happens to the best of us. So this person walks up and he says, my wife is a dentist. You're like, okay. And obviously he brought up a smile to my face because, hey, hello, that's my profession. So he said, my wife is a dentist, and dentists are people who tell you not to pick your teeth with sharp pointy objects. And the minute you sit in their chair, they take an iron hook and they go. It had me in spirits. Half the audience was laughing. People who had been to dentists, obviously, and knew what he was talking about. And then he said they make these noises, which is actually true. And then he went on and on and on to describe the dental procedure. And when he ended, people were rolling off their chairs. This is a humorous speech contest. And then somebody said, Bill Cosby's show. It was checked online, it was Bill Cosby's show. Unfortunate, but true. The person lost credibility, the person lost prize. So, think about what makes you unique. Put a bit of yourself in the speech. Dare to be different, dare to be true, dare to be uniquely. Now, on that note, let's talk a little about table topics before we come back to making speeches and having fun with speeches. How do you tackle a table topic? Tackling table topics, another contest that's coming up, and the only criteria for this contest is you need to be a member in good standing, which means you need to have paid your dues to the club, and the club needs to have paid its dues to Toastmasters International. A member in good standing of a club in good standing. Remember, pay your dues. Alright, so let's get back to the fun part. How do you tackle table topics? Anybody? Yes, Manchu.
When I hear a topic, I think of a story that relates to this topic.
You think of a story that relates to it. Great! How many of us can think of stories? Yeah, very few. What are the other ways of tackling table topics?
What message I can give through it?
What message you can give through it? Okay, that's one. That's two. Anything else?
If anything can be related to any incident or anything that I can relate to it.
He's talking Vivamos. Vivamos is one technique where the examiner asks you a question and you take that question to where to what you know. How many of you have faced questions in examinations? Oral questions? Yes? And how many of you have had no idea what the examiner is asking you and yet answered something? That's the Vivamos technique. That's what he's talking about. Take it to what you know. So take the topic to whatever you know. It doesn't matter. Right. That's one. And that's three. You can twist the topic. We're still on the topic. Yes, you can twist it around. For example, if they talk about love, you can talk about friendships, you can talk about hate, you can talk about anything. Right. Explain the meaning. In fact, you could go to that, yes.
You can compare the things like.
Absolutely. On one hand and on the other hand. India shining. Simple topic. On one hand, India was the land of milk and honey. On the other hand, it is not the land of milk and honey now. On one hand, we had a brain drain. On the other hand, where do we stand now? X and Y, A and B. Compare A to B. So that's another way of tackling table topics. Then there is the past, present and future. Like I said, India shining. What was India in the past? Sone ki chiriya, the golden bird, India today and India tomorrow. Or let's say talk about Nostradamus' predictions. We should have ceased to exist. They're still around. So you can never predict what happens in the future. Really, it depends on how you look at it. Then, what else? Alright, now let's talk about how to make a story when we talk in terms of table topics. He said, I think of a story that I can relate to it. Let me talk about making a story. What you do is you create a nest and you put an egg in it. Sounds confusing? Okay. So you have a topic, you talk about X, Y, Z, and then you create that story by putting that character in it. Finally, you have a conclusion. Remember, a table topic is a mini speech. You have an opening, body, and conclusion. Luckily, our district does not have huge, long topics. When we were part of District 82, and this was until 2011, we used to have topics that went on for about 20 seconds. Halfway through the topic, you forgot what the topic was. Happened to me. I was at the district contest and my topic was, sometimes you have to blow your own trumpet because only you know the tune, but the best, well, I don't even remember what half it was. So I started talking about blowing your own trumpet and only you knowing the tune, and I forgot the rest of the topic. On stage, district level contest. So I have a lot of stories where I never came first. And if I were to write a speech, I would say, never came first. But that's my story. What's yours? Table topics. I was talking about making a story and creating a nest and putting an egg in it. What did I do? I created a story. I had this, which is a real story by the way. I had this table topics contest where I went, I had this topic, and I forgot. It's okay to forget. It gave me a story. What is it that you want to leave the audience with? What is that one message you want to leave the audience with? When I stepped up to give my CC 10, I was told, this is the best project of your life. Really? Okay. This is where you leave the audience with a message. Remember, if you had a little brother or a little sister, or a child, or somebody loved that you wanted to leave with the best message of your life, and you only had a few minutes, what would you say to them? Your international speech is like that. What is the message that you want to leave your loved ones with? What is the message that you want to leave your family with? Remember, Toastmasters is a huge family. What is the best thing that you can do? When you speak from the heart, it goes into the heart. So think about what message you want to leave them with. Simple enough? Let's also talk about voice modulation. Sorry, but you know what's more important than voice modulation? Pause. Learn to pause right. There is something known as a pregnant pause. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay. So a pregnant pause is where people know that. Sorry.
Once there was a girl. Very pretty. But she was unaware about the fact that she was pretty.
You got it! Act 2, a Cinderella story.
He fell in love with the prince of the town.
Not bad.
And the prince as well.
Awesome. Sorry, what did you say your name was?
Tushar.
Tushar can do mimicry well. So, what does he do? He utilizes his mimicry talent into his speech. of that is something for him to decide. But I thought that was beautiful. What I didn't realize was Cinderella was a he who fell in love with the prince.
Sorry, my bad.
That's not.
I was too much into mimicry, I forgot the
In fact,
gender.
one of his, how many of you blog? Right, so I recently, no not recently, I sometime back wrote a blog on one size that fits all. Cinderella had this lovely shoe size that didn't fit anyone, but in modern days, most of us have a size 6 or a size 7. And if Cinderella was a size 6, what would happen? So the courtiers would come back to the prince and say, we found 23 people who fit that shoe. And 2 of them are men. And one of the men is very, very pretty. One size fits all, remember, that's never a true life situation. You have to find what fits you. Any theatre actors here? Nobody's in the theatre? I used to be. And when I started in Toastmaster, rather when I restarted in Toastmaster, so I took a sabbatical, I joined at college, and then I left for a little bit because I was doing my master's in history, which made me a period artist. So when somebody said, what makes you smile? I'm like, the dentist. Usually it's the smile designing that makes you smile, and dentists usually do that. But when I rejoined Toastmasters, and I was majorly into theatre at that time. In theatre, you have to understand the stage is huge. So you start at one corner and you're trying to cover the other. I would start my speech at one corner, or rather in the center of the stage, and by the time I would finish, I would be at the door. So people would like. So somebody suggested, you're doing everything right, except that you're doing beautifully. CRC, remember? Except that you need to put a little rug under your feet and you stay on the rug, stay rooted. And I said, okay. So I would put a rug under my feet and I would still be at the door and then I would be there. It took me ages to stick to the same rug. We all have our challenges, we all have our different personalities, we all have something that we do well. When I look at the show, I'm like, my God, what a mimicry artist. And I'm like, I can't do that. So I will not even try it. What I will try is using my advantage in my speech. All of us have strengths. All of us have disadvantages. What is it that you use is entirely up to you. If you can convert your disadvantage into an advantage, nothing like it. Now, how many of you have experienced sweaty palms, shaky knees, butterflies in the stomach when you come up to give a speech? The idea is to convert those butterflies to fly out and fly back in with information. It doesn't take too much. What it takes is a little bit of will and lots of stage time. Practice, practice, practice. They say practice makes a man perfect. Woman is already perfect. Trust me, practice makes anybody perfect. Man, woman, or thing. So think about it. Work on your speeches. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. And at the moment, we are here for questions. The stage is open. If there's any speech that you want to discuss, you want to see how a speech is twisted around, we could do that. If you want to work with table topics, we could do that as well. Floor is yours. Yes.
One major question. According to the protocol of Toastmasters International, we are not allowed to use any language other than English.
Right.
But the question is, if there are nouns in some other language, are those allowed? Like names, like we are conveying a story of Mahabharata and we say the name Dhritarashtra. So is that allowed in?
Absolutely. Trust me when we say.
Or any particular terminology of a process?
Let me tell you, my friend. Toastmaster manuals are there in Spanish, French, Chinese, and English. Yes. So when they look at English and when they say English, they say it because everybody understands English. Dhritarashtra may work in India. When you go international with that speech, Dhritarashtra may still work. But if you talk about a Attamaji Satakli? That still may work in India, it will not work abroad. So, think about it. That's why we say it's a good idea to translate what you say in Hindi to English. But names you can either change or you can use the same names, it doesn't matter. Shanti will be Shanti will be Shanti.
Exactly.
Unless you're in China. There they have a Chinese name and they have an English name, and if you give them an Indian name, they're very happy. So this friend of mine writes, but he wasn't really a friend, he was one of my clients that I was working with. I am into soft skills, I've been in soft skills for a while now. So they wanted a module done and I said okay, so this was a 2-day program. And this man was flying in from China and he said, my name is blah 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 blah, but I'd be happy if you call me Rajiv. And I'm like, how did this happen? Until I met someone who's my school sister now, and her name was something in Chinese which is pronounced as go away. What's your name? Go away. So, literally translated, go means apple, which is her family name, and away means power, which is her actual name. So go away. And we're like, what? Oh, but my English name is this. And I'm like, you know what? If it's somebody powerful, I'd rather call you Durga. And she loved that name. So go away became, who was something else, became Durga. And she continues to be Durga now. It really depends on who said what is in a name. That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Are you sure?
Yes, yes.
But if there's nothing in the name, how does it matter if it was Shakespeare or somebody else? You're right, it was said by Shakespeare, and incidentally, when you quote someone, quote the name right. Or say somebody has said. Don't try and pass it off as your own. That will be considered plagiarism. If you've taken something from the net, you can say this was picked up from the net. Or somewhere I read, or someone has said. Remember, not more than 25% of your speech can be picked up. Because if it is, then you're in trouble. One of the contestants or judges can object and you leave a suit. Your stories should be your own. In fact, I had blogged about this as well, what is in a name. I was giving a table topic, and the topic was what is in a name. And I talked of how when I was small, I used to get these magazines called Amar Chitrakat, Tinkle, and Nandan, and Champak, and one of these magazines had this ad at the back, I think it was Amar Chitrakat, which had gems, Cadbury gems, and there was this man with a gun and it said, Gems Bond, my name's Bond, Gems Bond. And I spoke about how that influenced me and how those little magazines shaped me to be the person I am today. I'm a bookaholic. An avid reader, I read 3 books a day, every day, without fail. And it was only because when I was small, my mother would sit me down and read those books to me. It got me hooked. What is in a name? Apparently a lot. But when I blogged, I wrote about having a name like chickenpox. How would it be? And then there was somebody who talked about having a name like Blossom Baby Cookie. Trust me, these are real names. But the point is, the sweetest thing that a person can hear is his or her name. When somebody talks to you and remembers your name, how do you feel? We've all experienced it. So there's a lot in a name, apparently. Well said. It was indeed Shakespeare. Then we come to why should we compete? Anyone?
To know who we really are, like what our dimension is.
To know who we really are, where we stand, okay?
Yeah. Well, it is fun.
Sorry?
Well, it is fun.
Because it fun-filled, okay?
To win.
Sorry, to express ourselves, fantastic. If somebody can give me the answer, you can have this win as well.
To win.
The real
To
growth.
win,
To
okay?
beat ourselves. To better ourselves.
To better ourselves. How do you better yourself?
The real growth
We
happens
compete with ourselves, how we are now and what you
Absolutely, we compete with ourselves. If I just give you a win, I'm sorry, I can't give you an award.
can't go back on that. So many witnesses.
No, but let's look at it this way. You've got all the answers.
Okay,
Did you?
Let me give it one to
Yes,
somebody
please.
else.
Please do that. I would rather have somebody else say thank you, Toastmaster. Okay. Yeah, please do that. All
Ritu,
right.
do you know he is a banker?
No wonder. I would rather have two people wearing that pin than one.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. So, Toastmasters, why did you join? To learn. To improve our communication skills, to improve our leadership skills, to meet people, networking, having fun. Any other reasons?
Explore.
To explore where you can go, express. How better than to increase my confidence? To increase your confidence. My friend, you're in the right place.
Yes.
Couldn't have thought of a better person myself, well done. But seriously, when you joined Toastmasters, remember you made a promise to yourself that you would have fun, that you would be a better person, that you would network. What better place to network or to improve yourself than a contest? Because remember, you watch 9 other contestants at least, or 6 other contestants at least, or 3 other contestants at least. And when you watch them, you compare not only yourself with them, but you compare yourself with yourself, where you were then and where you are now. One way to improve yourself in terms of delivery is video record, see it, improve. Remember, good speeches are not written, they are rewritten. Write your speeches down and rewrite them. Now those who do not write speeches are looking down and not even looking at me and wondering, what do I do? It's okay, is it okay? No. We should write them down because then we can modulate our words. I think you can close that down now. I just wanted Tushar's session recorded. So.
Can I continue?
Sure. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. So, we are back to making speeches. Any questions?
Once I had this feedback in one of the contests. I lost that contest. I was second place. And this lady walked up to me and she said that you were losing your audience. Your pronunciation was not according to them. Like I was pronouncing bear, bhalu. And they said, they call it bear. So that's where this difference is. So it's also...
My teacher used to say, pronunciations and pronunciations vary from people to people. It doesn't matter. One person can come up to you and say, I love the way you pronounced it. So what?
You just have 5% only.
5 marks for pronunciation, enunciation and grammar. How does it matter?
Just 95%.
People will give their opinions. How many opinions are you going to take? I have been in international speech contests for about 5 years in a row. Club, area, division and district level. 5 years in a row. And you know some of the feedback that I've received? I've been the fastest DTM ever. You know some of the feedback that I've received? One feedback that I got was, I stepped up on stage. Now you have to understand, I was on my 9th speech, my 2nd round. My first round was in Bangalore. I started with Bangalore Toastmasters. My first speech was done 14 times in 13 different clubs. Because the minute I would win a ribbon in one club, we used to have ribbons, not certificates. My mentor would be like, oh, you won it in this club? You've come to improve your confidence, right? You're having fun, right? Let's go to the other club. There were 13 clubs in the city. And he would actually drive me down to those clubs. And there was this one time, now in Bangalore, you have to understand, Bangalore at that time was not very Or rather, I wasn't sure how good or how bad it was. And when my mentor said, dress conservatively, I went in a sari. My icebreaker at a new club in a sari, not my home club. So I went in a sari and I was on my kinetic. Thankfully, I had learned to drive it by then. I went to my mentor, he worked at the Vidhansabha, his car did not come that day. So he drove the kinetic, I sat at the back and we came into a puddle. And we were almost killed. Somehow we reached the club. And when I stepped on stage to give my speech, my sari was in my hand. The ice had been broken. It was my icebreaker. It happens to the best of us, so what? What was the feedback that I got? Amazing speech. Do you let your mistakes define you? How many of you attended Resonance 2014? Okay, so you haven't heard the story. I was in a MasterChef class. Chef Kunal, now he looks fat on TV, but he isn't. So he stepped up, we were waiting for him, some 35, 40 of us, and there were some 20 people standing at the back because they had reserved seats only for 40 of us. So, and those people were the so-called important people who could not be denied entrance. So we were sitting there for the MasterChef class and he started with his mic. Okay, and the mic went, he was like, hello. And he doesn't sound like that, but the mic was malfunctioning. So the mic kept malfunctioning for 5 minutes. And when it started, I started smiling. 3 minutes later, I had thrown my head in the air and I was laughing out loud. And he looked at me and he's like, do you find it funny? And everybody is looking at me. And I'm like, yeah. He said, why? I said, does it define how good you cook? Does it define how well you cook? No. Does that one pronunciation define how well you deliver your speeches or how many people you influence? Will you let it define you?
That's also a lesson.
I wouldn't call it a lesson.
It's not roughly only 5%.
I was told one thing in my life. जब लोग तुम्हारे बारे में बात करने लगे, समझो तरक्की कर रहे हो. When people start talking about you, know that you are growing.
Okay.
I was on my 9th speech, new club. So I did my 9 speeches in Bangalore. I left for a while while I was doing my masters, came back to Delhi, restarted Toastmasters, and I started from Project 1. And I said, you know what, I'm going to give it a fresh start. Because I've learned a lot, so let me restart this. So I did Project 1 again. Project 2, Project 3, Project 4, Project 5. I joined 5 clubs, and I worked at breakneck speed. I would go to Gurgaon one morning, Noida in the afternoon, Delhi in the evening. Number of 5 clubs. We had about 14 odd clubs in Delhi at that time, NCR at that time. Dwarka came in later. Corporate club, community club, I did not even think twice. I mean, half the time people at corporates had thought I was working there because I would visit them so often. Finally, one of the clubs gave me a membership. They said, you know what, take a membership. It's okay. We don't mind you coming every time, but just take a membership at least. So, what happened was, when I was on my 9th speech, that day the venue was not available. Now I was a new member. Venue was not available and I thought to myself, hey, I have a clinic, I can give that as a venue. So the venue was decided. I arranged those chairs in my clinic and my topic was, you must visit your dentist once in 6 months. Now, what better a venue than a dental clinic to give that kind of a speech? And my evaluator stepped up and said, I did not like your speech. You don't have good voice. I did not understand the topic. I don't like dentists. I didn't like the venue. How is it related to the scene? I didn't understand your topic. You don't have you didn't have structure. You didn't have a good voice. You didn't have body language. In short, you're an idiot. Well, I didn't like your speech, but the speaker has potential. He started with the speaker has potential, but I didn't like your speech. He ended with I didn't like your speech, but the speaker has potential. It was one of the worst evaluations of my life. The absolute pits, and I'm like, where is the mutually supportive environment? I mean, okay, you don't do a whitewash, you don't just do comment, but you also don't do recommend. Where is the mutually supportive and positive learning environment? And I was devastated. Remember, when you give your evaluations, think about the speaker. You are here to help the speaker grow. If you just give a positive feedback, the speaker will never grow. If you just give a negative feedback, the speaker will never come back again. But me being me, the stubborn girl that I am, next day I went to another club and I said, can I have a speech slot? And they said, okay. And luckily, they had guests that day, all the way from Sri Lanka. All the way from Sri Lanka. There was a man called Arunachalam Balraj. And at that time he was division governor or something similar. And since he was visiting, I said, can you do my evaluation? Now I had one clear goal in my mind. If this man says my speech is bad, I will know I need to improve my speech. If this man says my speech is good, then I will know that the person who gave me that evaluation was just jealous or trying to grind his own axe. There was some reason behind that kind of evaluation. And that day, I received the best evaluation of my life. One of the best evaluations of my life. At that time, it was the best evaluation of my life. So some will, some won't, so what? Next. The idea is, does it define who you are? Does it define what message you leave the audience with? Do you let it define what you can do? If I had let that one man define my potential, I wouldn't be here today. Arunachalam Balraj is the second vice president of Toastmasters International today. That same man. You don't know where you can go. You don't know where the other person can go. Please be sensitive when you evaluate. Please be considerate when you evaluate. And please evaluate to motivate and to help. Because remember, the best of speakers receiving the worst of evaluations will never come back. It's very simple. If you look at me and say, Ritu Arora, I don't like the way you dress. Thank you very much. Ritu Arora will not come back. On the other hand, if you say, I like your dressing style. If you could just change the colors perhaps, or maybe mix and match. But I really like the way you dress up. I will listen. So think about what is it that you want to convey, why you want to convey it. I'll come back to what that lady told me. Why is it that you're giving a speech? Why is it that you're doing an evaluation? Why is it that you're participating in difficulties? To have fun? Yes. To win? Perhaps. But is it to convey your message, to express, or to impress? I used to have this mentor, one of my mentors in Bangalore. Now in Bangalore I had 3 or 4 mentors. One of them spoke at this breakneck speed, almost like a TGV train. And when he would finish, people would be like, wow, kya bola? 5 minutes later they'd be like, bola kya? Because nobody would remember what he said. He would speak so fast that people would be so impressed by his English. Hi, what is speaker? What did he say again? What is your objective? Bear, beer, buyer, who cares? You lost your audience not because of pronunciation. You lost them perhaps because they didn't come from you. Or people hadn't come across bears. Think about your audience. How many of them would have come across a bear? remember when we talk about tall tales, when we talk about hypothetical things happening in XYZ, people may not be able to relate. But simple things happening at home, breaking a fingernail, happens to the best of us. Maybe you know it. It becomes difficult to apply nail polish after that. Or, how many of you have ever fractured a foot? That's what you're lucky. I am. And that's another story. But how many of you have fallen down? Resonance 2014, my first address as district governor, and the first time I was supposed to address my district. I stepped up on stage, and I can say the steps were faulty, but they weren't. I wasn't looking, I was wearing a sari, and I fell down on stage. Just as I was stepping up. So what? Does it define who I am? Does it define what I can do for the district? What defines you? And you let it define you. Mistakes, failures happen to the best of us. We are not perfect. Now this woman who said your pronunciation was not perfect, I'll come back to her. How good was her pronunciation? It may have been perfect. How good was she in expressing herself? Was she participating? My question is, was she participating? Was she a contestant?
No, she was a normal audience.
You dared to contest, she didn't. Let's put it this way. Of course, it's very easy to walk on a plank of wood which is 1 foot wide and 15 feet tall. It's very easy to walk on it. But if you put the same plank connecting two buildings on the top and then walk on it, how many of you would be able to do it? It's very easy to sit in the audience and connect. It's very difficult to step up on stage and walk that plank which connects two buildings. You dared to do it. She didn't. What she said doesn't matter. I have often faced situations where I've been on stage and people have said, oh, this was wonderful, and at the same time somebody said this was crazy. This was just pathetic. So what? Whose feedback do you take? Remember I said, video record? It will help you know your nuances and you will work with them. There will be something that you did well to make you reach there. The other person didn't. You were part of the audience. Never forget that. Do your pronunciations define you? Now remember I spoke about the zenith, the guy who climbed the coconut tree? He is from Orissa. Now I don't know if you know this, but in Orissa, sh becomes sa. And in Bengal, sa becomes sha. So you tie a shari and shoes in? And then you tie a sari and shoes in Orissa. Yes? It's the local lingo. Sometimes you are influenced by the local culture. It doesn't matter. This guy came third in the district despite his pronunciation. And what did he work on? Not that he did not work on his pronunciation. Yes, he did. But the point is, despite the pronunciation, that he could have come third in the district, that's a huge thing. You just need to remember.
You can say Prasyan Basudev.
Prasyan Basudev. His native language is not English, changed by a tire. How many of us have changed tires? Changed by a tire, yeah. How many of us have changed tires? Need speeches about it? Precisely. Simple things. And he was not a native English speaker. His English language was not very clear.
Bulgarian.
Sorry?
Bulgarian.
Yeah, he's Bulgarian. His English language was not very clear. He did not have the English language skills. We are still blessed. We speak English on a daily basis. They don't. And yet he walked up on that stage and won the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2000. spun his wheelchair around on the stage. Use your disadvantage to your advantage. Use your advantage to its fullest. There is nothing stopping you. In fact, recently I came across this forward where a set of employees go to an office and they receive a note saying, the person who was stopping your progress died yesterday. The funeral is at 1 o'clock. Please be there. I don't know if some of you have read this, but this was a forward that I came across, and people were very sad, and they said, one of our colleagues died, that's so sad, but it's nice that he's no more because he was stopping my progress. And they went, and they peeped into the coffin, and what they saw shocked each and every one of them. There was a mirror in the coffin. The person who's stopping your own progress is you. It is your mental block that's holding you back. Remove that block. Give it your best shot. And even if you don't win the trophy, you at least get the experience. You become better than who you are today. And you win a lot of friends. Because remember, that person won and we're all together. We'll see you next time. So, think about it, and we're back to questions.
I have one question. In the last, I attended an area level contest in Nagaro. There was a disruption, like the lights went off. Okay, so how to handle that situation?
Technical difficulties. You are given 1 extra minute if there is a technical difficulty. Unfortunately, that's all. Your timers have been instructed. If the timing lights fail, if the lights fail, they're supposed to show cards or ring a bell.
Okay.
They have to give you some kind of an indication.
And something other non-technical, like someone come in between, so we can make fun of it and then continue.
Unfortunately, nothing can be done. It's sad but true.
We can make fun of it, a little fun of it, then continue with our speech.
Absolutely. How you twist it is entirely up to you. I was there for my division contest, and the reason I can tell you all is because this happened to me. I was there for my division contest, table topics, a few years ago, and the minute I was supposed to start speaking, I said, "Good afternoon," and somebody said hello. And this woman was testing the mic from outside, and I was on the stage speaking, and the judges didn't know who to listen to. Because they were confused, where are these two voices coming from? I was confused, I'm not even speaking, where is this voice coming from? So in short, it was a huge confusion, a huge mess, but just my luck. And I have stories to tell. It hurts at that time, it hurts very badly, but then later when you think about it, you're like, maybe it was for the best. Yes, Raj, you had something to say.
See, what do you think? Is it better to record your practice or video, or is it better to practice in front of your family members?
Both. When you practice in front of your family members, they give you suggestions, right? Toastmasters is your large family. Toastmasters will also give you suggestions. Like I said, somebody will say this is done well, somebody will say it's not going well. Who decides? That's the time your videos come to your help. Because you can go recheck and see what kind of impact is it creating. If the impact is taking out of your speech, improve it. If it's adding to your speech, let it be. Because your family members are also human. What you are trying to express is something you know. They may not. May or may not. But at the same time, when you have your video and you see what you're expressing, you get a second opinion. Trust, but validate. Yes, you have a question?
Nothing, I was scratching my head.
Nana particle style?
No.
Alright, any more questions? Sorry? Alright, any more questions? No? You're all set to complete? Anything I can do to help? Table topics easy? Prepared speech easy? Next time on here we tackle evaluations. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful.
Thank you. session
So I
concludes.
think we are